Have you ever drunk soda when you were really thirsty and then ended up even thirstier? You were drinking, so shouldn't you be less thirsty? You feel thirsty when your cells don't have enough water inside of them. Drinking water helps to fill those cells back up. So let's see why soda makes you thirstier and why a salt shaker could be used as a weapon in this situation. To review, diffusion is the movement of a substance across the membrane from high concentration to low concentration. But not everything moves from high concentration to low concentration, and not everything can move easily through the cell membrane. There are three ways substances get transported across the cell membrane, depending on what type of molecule is moving and the environment surrounding the cell. Active transport involves moving things from low concentration to high concentration, the opposite way they tend to want to move, or the movement of large substances. It's called active transport because it requires energy. Facilitated diffusion is when solutes move from high to low concentration through a protein channel. It's called facilitated diffusion because molecules need help passing through that membrane. Finally, osmosis is the movement of water from high concentration to low concentration. Many times, water is able to move across the membrane much more easily than other substances. Therefore, the concentration of solutes on each side of the membrane changes because of the addition or removal of water. Add water and it becomes less concentrated. Take water away and it becomes more highly concentrated. Water moves across the membrane through a process called osmosis. It has to move through special protein channels called aquaporins, but they don't require any energy to do so. Three terms describe the relative concentrations of solutes inside and outside a cell. These are comparison terms, so they're always used in relation to their surroundings. Isotonic means concentration of solutes is the same inside and outside the cell. As a result, the same number of water molecules is moving into the cell as are moving out of the cell. Notice that the movement of water doesn't stop, it's just equal moving into and out of the cell. Hypertonic means more solutes. So if you say a cell is hypertonic, the cell has more solutes than its environment. But you could also say that the solution is hypertonic. This would mean that the environment has more solutes. You can see why it's important to specify what is hypertonic, because the previous two statements reflect completely different conditions. Hypotonic means less solutes. I always remember hyper and hypo because I think of a hyper child who just had a lot of sugar. Lots of sugar, lots of solute. Hypertonic, hyper kid. It's the concentration of solutes that determines how osmosis happens. You can remember where water moves by thinking of the phrase salt sucks. What that means is that salt pulls water towards itself. Wherever there's a high concentration of salts, there's a lower concentration of water. Therefore, water will move from a high concentration to a lower concentration where there's more salt. So salt sucks water towards itself so that there's an equal concentration of solutes on each side of the membrane. Looking at the cartoon above, why is this slug armed if it has a shaker of salt? Facilitated diffusion also is a passive process, meaning that there's no energy that's required, but it also requires the use of protein channels. The protein channels let small molecules and ions across the membrane and are specific to the molecule they allow through. For example, in our nerve cells, there are sodium channels and potassium channels. Each one allows only either sodium or potassium to pass through. Active transport refers to any type of transport that requires energy. There are two general reasons why energy would be required. The first is that the materials moving across the cell membrane are large. This happens often in single-celled organisms. The way they eat is by pinching inwards a piece of their cell membrane so that it surrounds the food. Doing this forms a food vesicle inside the cell. When these cells want to get rid of waste products, the opposite process takes place. The waste is put into a vesicle, which fuses with the cell membrane, spilling its contents outside the cell. The second reason that energy would be required to move things across a cell membrane is if the substance was moving against the concentration gradient. In other words, from low concentration to high concentration. This is backwards of the way things usually move. Protein pumps are special channels that use energy to move substances from low concentration to high concentration. These can be found in your nerve cells also. Pumping in sodium is an important way allowing a message to move down a cell to another part of your body. These three pictures show cells in different environments. Describe both the cell and the environment as either hypertonic, hypotonic, or isotonic. Then explain in which direction water will move and why.